Good morning Year 7 and welcome to today's maths lesson. Let's start off with a quick starter, shall we? Can you convert 20% to a fraction for me? Can you find 1/4 of 100? Can you then find 1/25 of 100? And can you solve the equation 3x plus 2 equals 11? Pause the video and have a go at these questions in your light blue books for me. Right, let's go through the answers. So percent means out of 100. So 20% just means 20 out of 100 as a fraction. I can simplify that by dividing top and bottom by 20, which will give me 1 out of 5. For the second question, I asked you to find 1/4 of 100, so I need to do 100 divided by 4, which will give me 25. For the next one, I asked you to find 1/25 of 100, so I need to do 100 divided by 25 this time, which gives me what, Poppy? 4, excellent. And I asked you to solve this equation, so you need to work out what x is. The first thing I want to do is get rid of this plus 2, and to do that I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides, which will leave me with 3x equals 9. Then to work out what x is, I divide both sides by 3, which leaves me with x is equal to 3. Let's head into today's lesson. So this is our lesson destination of today. We're looking at percentage of quantities, working out things like 80% of something, 21% of something, and harder quantities such as 40 as a percentage of 10. But this is where we're going to start. In your dark blue books, can you give me the title percentages? And underneath, percentages are always measured in what, Melissa? They are always measured out of 100. We said percentage came from the Latin out of 100, so percentages are always measured out of 100. And we must divide 100% by different values to find smaller percentages of a number. So here's my bar representing 100%. If I divide that bar into 2 pieces, each of those smaller pieces is going to be worth 100 divided by 2, which is 50%. Over to you, Year 7. In your dark blue books, can you copy out this diagram and fill in all the remaining percentages? The top bar is 100%. When we divide it by 2, each of those little bars is going to be worth 50%. What happens when we divide 100 by 4, by 5, by 10, and by 20? Please pause the video and have a go at this now in your dark blue books. Copy out the bars and complete. And if you finish, have a go at my extension questions. This should take you about 5 to 10 minutes. Off you go. And these are the answers. When we divided that bar by 2, we had 50%. When we divided it into 4 sections, each of those sections was worth 25%. When we divided it into 5 sections, each of those sections was worth 20%. We add them up to give us 100. When we divided it into 10 sections, each of those sections was worth 10%. And when I divided it into 20 sections, each of those sections was worth 5%. How many sections I would need for 1%, I'd need to divide it into 100 sections. To find 0.5%, I'd need to divide each of those sections into 2, so I'd get 200 sections. And for 0.1%, I would need 1,000 sections on my bar model. We're going to use this to work out the percentage of a quantity. So pens down, eyes on me to start with. I've got 150. And I've said that's 100% of my number. My starting number is 150. If I want to work out what 10% is, 100% is represented by the whole bar. I divide that bar into 10 separate sections. Each of those little sections is worth 10%. I need to divide 150 by 10 to work out how much each of those sections is worth. So each of those sections is going to be worth 15, and 10% of 150 is 15. 15 added up 10 times gives me my total 150. So my bars are equal. I can use this to work out what 30% of 150 would be. For 30%, I'd need 3 lots of this 10%. So 10%, 10%, plus 10%, plus 10%, which would give me 3 times 15, which equals 45. In your light blue books or on your mini whiteboards, if you have them, can you use this to work out what 40% of 150 would be, what 70% of 150 would be, what 100% of 150 would be, and what 140% of 150 would be? Pause the video and spend a couple of minutes working these out now, please. Okay, so for 40% I'd need 4 of these little squares, so I'd need to do 4 times 15, which gives me 60. To work out 70%, I'd need 7 of my little 10% squares, so I'd need to do 7 times 15. 7 times 15 would give me 7 times 15 would give me 105. To work out 100% of 150, that's just the whole bar, which would be 150. And to work out 140% of 150, I'd need to do 14 times 15, which would give me 210. So we're using our little 10% sections, multiplying them up to find out 40%, 70%, 100% and 140%. Okay, Year 7, in your dark blue books, can you give me the title percentage of amounts? And when you've got that down, can I see pens down, eyes on me? I'll go through some examples and then you can do an example. So I've got 250 and I've said 250 is 100% of my number. I've split 250 into these little 10% sections. How much is each of those 10% sections going to be worth to me, Dijon? 25, exactly. If I divide it by 10, each of those little sections is going to be worth 25. I've got 10 of them. If I add up 25 10 times, that gives me my total of 250. My first question says, what is 10% of 250? We know now that's 250 divided by 10, so 25. To work out 40%, we need to do 4 lots of that 10%, which will give me 100. To work out 70%, we need 7 of those sections. 7 times 25 will give me 175. To work out 100%, that's my full bar, so that's 250. And to work out 140%, I need to do 14 times 25, which will give me what, Adam? 250 plus the 4 times 25, which is 350. Over to you, Year 7. In your dark blue books, can you pause the video for 5 minutes and copy and complete this bar model for 750, and then find 10%, 40%, 70%, 100% and 140% of 750. Pause the video and have a go at that now, please. Okay, let's check our answers. To find 10%, we divided 750 by 10, so that would give me 75. To find 40%, we need to multiply 75 by 4. To find 70%, we need to multiply it by 7. To find 100%, we should have got 750, that's the whole bar. And to find 140%, we could do 100% plus 40%, which would give me 1050. Okay, Year 7, can you switch to your light blue books now and complete these 8 questions for me? Pause the video, this should take you about 5 to 10 minutes. Off you go. And these are the answers I was looking for. Please check your work and see how you did. Okay, so far we're confident finding multiples of 10%. However, we're now going to use our bar model to find some slightly different percentages. Please put your pens down and watch me while I go through this example, and then you're going to do an example in your dark blue books afterwards. So first up, I've got 200 as my 100%. To find 50%, I'm going to divide it by 2. So I know that each of these parts of my bar model is going to be worth 100. Because 100 plus 100 gives me 200. 50% is just 100. For these parts, I need to divide 100 by 2 again. So 25% is going to be 50. For 20%, I've got 5 lots of 20% in 200. So I need to divide 200 by 5, which is going to give me 40. So each of these parts of the bar is worth 40. And for the 10%, we should all be pretty confident by now. We need to divide 200 by 10. So each of these 10% parts is going to be worth 20. And the sum of the sections adds up to the total section at the top each time. Over to you, Year 7. In your dark blue books, can you complete this bar model for me using 600 as your top number? And when you've finished and you want to have a go at an extension, can you find 5% of 600 and 1%? Please pause the video and complete this in your dark blue books now. And here are the answers for you. So 50%, we divided it by 2 to give me 300. Each of those 25% is worth 150. To find the 20%, we needed to divide it by 5, which gave us 120. To find 10%, we needed to divide it by 10, so each of those was worth 60. And if we were talking about the extension questions, to find 5%, I needed to divide each of these sections into 2. 60 divided by 2 would give me 30, so 5% would be 30. To find 1%, I needed to divide this 10% into 10 sections. So they'd be really tiny sections. 60 divided by 10 gives me what, Rosie? 6. Lovely. Okay, Year 7, light blue books now, or mini whiteboards if you have them. Please find for me 10% of 80. Pause the video, work it out now. Let's go through it. To find 10%, I need to divide it by 10. 80 divided by 10 gives me 8. How about now? Pause the video, have a little think. Same again, we're doing 8 divided by 10, which gives me 0.8. How about now then? Okay, this time we can find 10%, which gave us 0.8, and we were happy. To find 5%, I'd have to divide that 10% by 2. So 5% of 8 would be 0.4. How about now? How could you find 5% of 800? Pause the video, have a little think. Okay, we know 10% of 800. We divide it by 10, would give us 80. So 5%, I just divide it by 2, which will give me 40. How about now? We're going to have to add some percentages up this time. What's 10% of 800, Evie? 10% is 80, we just divided it by 10. What's 5% of 100 then going to be, Gabby? 5% of 800 is 40. So to work out 15%, I can just add together my 10% and my 5%, which gives me what, Cassia? 120, lovely. Okay, Year 7, in your light blue books, please pause the video for about 10 minutes and have a go at these questions. Please complete them in the order I've set. They're in that order for a reason. See if you can notice any patterns. Off you go. And these are the answers. Please check your work and see how you did. Okay, Year 7, if you're confident, can you have a go at this question for me? It's called Ever Wondered Why. You're going to start at the start, and your first letter is going to be G. You then need to work out what 50% of 400 would be. To work out 50%, I would divide 400 by 2, which would give me 200. This would lead me to the top of this row. So my second letter is L. I then work out what 25% of 400 would be, which would give me 100. 25% of 400 is 100. So my next letter is U. Over to you, Year 7. Please pause the video for about 10 minutes and see how many of these you can work out. It will spell out a sentence. And these are the answers. Please check your work and see how you did. And finally, Year 7, this was our lesson destination of today. Please pause the video for 5 to 10 minutes and see how many of these questions you can now have a go at. Remember, use the bar model to help you out. Off you go. And these are the answers. Please check your work and see how you did. If you got the last one, well done. I asked you to work out 40 as a percentage of 10. 100% of 10 would be 10. So 200% of 10 would be 20. 300% of 10 would be 30. And 400% of 10 would be 40. And that's the end of today's lesson, Year 7. Please head over to Google Classroom and submit today's exit ticket for me. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.